Everyone, and welcome to the June 5th, 2023 meeting of the Westwood Select Board. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, on March 29, 2023, Governor Maura Healey signed into law an act making appropriations for the fiscal year 2023 to provide for supplementing certain existing appropriations and for certain other activities and projects. This act includes an extension until March 31, 2025 of the remote meeting provisions. This June 5th, 2023 Select Board meeting is being conducted by a remote participation by the board. I grant permission for Westwood Media Center to record the meeting. Thank you, Charlotte, for being with us. Is there anyone else who wishes to record the meeting? I see no affirmative responses. So with that, we will launch right into the chair's updates. First of all, a recap of Memorial Day. The parade and ceremony on May 29, 2023, this past Monday, was a great success. We could not have had any better weather, and the select board and the town administrator would like to thank all of those who worked very hard to plan and organize the parade and ceremony, including Janice Barba, Chief John Deckers, Melinda Garfield, Tish Healy, Ellen Hurley, Mary Ellen LaRose, Charlotte Lynch, Chris McEwen, Michelle Miller, Dick Pastor, Dottie Powers, Brendan Ryan, Sergeant Paul Sicard, Danielle Sutton, Lieutenant Joe Vinci, the DPW staff, public safety members, and police explorers, and the Westwood Media Center. The board would also like to recognize a few special people who attended the parade or participated in the ceremony or offered their support, including our Grand Marshal, Robert Zimian, our Gold Star Mother, Christine Devlin, Senator Michael Rush, Representative Paul McMurtry, Olivia Marino, our 8th grade student who did a fantastic job reciting the Gettysburg Address, Lynn Beatty, our poet laureate, Hank Murray, our trumpet player, the Reverend Catherine Miller, pastor of the First Baptist Church, Ariana Silva and Adeline Kelly, who led us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Tom Aaron, Bob Wood, the Daisies, Brownies, Girl Scouts, and Boy Scouts, the Masons, Fisher School students, Hale Education, Tom Carey in Westwood Public Schools, and a very special thanks to all of our volunteers who helped refresh the flags and plant flowers. Thank you all for making this year's observance a beautiful and significant tribute to all our service members who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Moving on, this month of June is Pride Month, and the Westwood Public Library is celebrating Pride Month with a big display of resources and an art installation with ribbons. Patrons can take home ribbon-colored friendship bracelets to make. So residents are encouraged to visit the library to celebrate Pride Month with these take-home activities. In the month of June, we also recognize the federal holiday of Juneteenth on June 19, of course. And in Westwood, there will be a Juneteenth celebration at Hale on Saturday, June 17th from 3 to 6:30 p.m. with a playback theater performance followed by a discussion led by Westwood High School's Let's Talk About Race, Culture, and Ethnicity group, followed by food and music. And on Monday, June 19th at 10 a.m., there will be a virtual webinar sponsored by Hale on what does it mean to be free. Also exciting news, the Farmers Market is back. Starting June 7th, the Farmers Market will be held on Wednesdays from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the parking lot of St. Margaret Mary's Church. The market will offer local produce and will also feature local artists. We encourage you to stop by the market, and we thank the congregation of St. Margaret Mary's for reviving this wonderful tradition. And lastly, for my update, an update on the fire union negotiations. We are pleased to report that since our last meeting, we have been actively engaged in the mediation process with the JLMC mediators as late as this past Friday afternoon, and we are very hopeful that we will reach a resolution soon. I also want to report that we are still waiting to receive the operational study. We expect to receive it soon. And on the same day that we, the select board, receive it, we will post it on the website so that it is available for everyone to see. And we do expect to discuss that at our next meeting on June 21st. So that's it from me. I will now turn it over to Chris Coleman for the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Just an update from the last meeting regarding the School Street Playground. Work continued last week as well as this week. We will have the pour in place surfacing will begin tomorrow through June 10th, and that is all weather permitting. The week of June 12th, the DPW will complete the grading near the pavilion, and the mulch surfacing will be placed near the fence, and that's expected to be completed around June 16th. Unfortunately, we did have a little bit of delay with the pouring of the concrete footings for the swing, which was an unforeseen delay. So the new opening date is now June 17th. Also, we will have all of 3 of our playgrounds. We have a scheduled inspection for all 3 of our playgrounds on June 16th, which is why the opening will be on June 17th. So just a little bit of a hiccup, but we are still looking to have the School Street Playground reopen this month. Also want to just update the community on the Clapboard Tree Street pump station project and the road work that's being done. We are waiting one piece of equipment to complete that work, and once that piece is installed, that Clapboard Tree Street project will be completed. And I'm happy to report that the Canton Street work has been completed. And just as a reminder to the community, this is not the Canton Street sidewalk project. This is just the Canton Street resurfacing work that is being done. I certainly want to thank our DPW, especially our director, Todd Fortune, and our assistant director, Brendan Ryan, for their leadership and foresight with these 2 projects. Lastly, Mary Ann, I just wanted to share, at the last meeting, you mentioned that we were going to have some backup information for the town's statement. With the positive work and movement that the town had with the union through the mediator JMLC process that you mentioned earlier, I did make a unilateral decision not to release that information, as we had a lot of positive things moving forward. And I just like, with the board's support, I like to continue with this positive movement that we have going forward, if the board's so inclined, while we continue on this process. As you said, we feel that we're very close to reaching an agreement with our fire union. Molly has done a tremendous amount of work working with the JMLC rep, and I certainly wouldn't want to derail the positive work that has been going on so far.
Thank you, Chris. So moving on to scheduled action, we have a request that the select board approve the rescheduled 2023 date for the 14th annual Pan Mass Challenge Kids Ride. And with us tonight is the ride coordinator, Nancy James. Welcome, Ms. James.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. You had kindly approved our ride on May 21st. I had to reshuffle priorities, and if the pandemic taught us anything, it was the need to be flexible. So was unable to host the ride on May 21st. So I'm asking for approval for September 24th. I have reached out to the police department and buildings and have their preliminary approval, and will continue to move forward with other approvals, but when nothing changes in terms of the routes, we're still doing the Tot Loop, the 1 mile, the 5 mile, and for those brave souls, to do the 5 mile loop twice, so for the 10 mile. And then it's still at Martha Jones. So again, no other changes, just had to change the date.
Well, thank you for all of your work. This is a huge service to the community that so many people look forward to every year. Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
No, I think that's the same weekend as Westwood Day, isn't it?
It is, and since we have great weather, that was a strategic move on my part. Since we always have great weather on Westwood Day, let's fingers crossed that it holds true. So it's the day after, it's the Sunday.
Brilliant.
Great, well, I will entertain a motion.
I move the select board approve the 14th annual Pan Mass Challenge Kids Ride to be held on Sunday, September 24th, 2023, pending the appropriate permits from the Town Administrator's Office, Board of Health, and Building Department, and I would assume any public safety permits as well.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Thank you very much, Nancy, for all your work on this. We look forward to it.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, moving on to new business. Our next agenda item is discussion regarding a town flag policy, which the town has never had. Our consideration of such a policy has been sparked by a very recent request coming through the Human Rights Task Force that the town fly the rainbow flag in support of Pride Month, which takes place every June. Currently, the town has one flagpole outside of Town Hall, and the town's practice for the past number of years has been to fly on the town flagpoles only the United States flag, the MIA POW flag, and more recently, the Purple Heart Award flag every August 7th. We are being advised that the town would be best served and best protected by adopting a flag policy. Such a policy would need to consider various statutory and common law obligations. For example, by statute, no flag may ever be flown higher than the United States flag, nor can any other flag ever be larger than the United States flag. And then there are also practical implications, such as how many flags can and should be flown from one pole, and whether we should consider adding other flagpoles. For that reason, I'm going to suggest that the board take the matter of a permanent flagpole policy under advisement, so that we can take the time to very deliberately perform the necessary research and due diligence in proposing a permanent flag policy for the town. In the meantime, tonight we have an interim flag policy to consider, which is intended to codify our existing practice of flying the United States flag, the MIA POW flag, and the Purple Heart flag on every August 7th, and which would also allow for the flying of the Pride flag from an outrigger flag on the facade of Town Hall, consistent with actions which have been taken in many of our neighboring communities, including Dedham, Canton, Medway, Belmont, and Newton. Again, this is being proposed as an interim policy, which would only codify and allow for our existing practice, with the addition of the Pride flag only for June of 2023, and then allow for greater consideration of a comprehensive permanent policy. My own view is that flying of the Pride flag would send a clear message of Westwood's support for the rights and the well-being of the LGBT community, and would reaffirm our commitment to celebrating diversity and practicing inclusion in our community. So I'm just going to read the interim policy that we're working with here. It's very short. It says, Town of Westwood interim flag policy. Number 1, introduction. This policy is intended to address flags that are allowed to be flown on the Town of Westwood flag poles. 2, flags that are allowed to be flown. The Select Board authorized the following flags to be flown on town-owned flagpoles as an expression of town's government speech: the official flag of the United States of America, the official flag of the MIA POW, and the official flag of the Purple Heart Award, flown on August 7th of each year. In addition, the Pride Rainbow flag is to be flown from an outrigger flagpole on Town Hall during the month of June of 2023. No other flags shall be allowed to be flown on town-owned flagpoles, as those flagpoles and this policy are not intended to establish or serve to create a forum for private expression. And just to be clear, there is the vertical flagpole on the grounds in front of Town Hall, on which the US flag, the POW, and the Purple Heart would remain as they have. The outrigger flagpole is a flagpole that would be flown at an angle, much like a flagpole you might have outside of your front door. So that's what that refers to. So with that, I want to open it up to discussion from my colleagues.
Joe, would you like to go first?
Sure, thanks, Rob. Marion, this outrigger, true confession, I was crushed when I learned that I received a flag that had been flown over the White House, and I learned it was a very brief flying over the White House in the back of the White House. This outrigger will be prominent from Route 109 High Street.
Yes, the thought is over the front door of Town Hall.
Perfect, thank you. I'm good, Rob.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Marion, a question, just how have other communities dealt with the idea of flying this flag and then prohibiting others?
Mm-hmm. I don't know the full answer to that, Rob. I know there has been litigation, for example, in Boston. That's maybe the prime example, because that case went to the Supreme Court. Not to turn this into a legal lesson, but Boston did have a policy, but they were allowing just about everybody without discretion to hang a flag. And then when they refused a religious group, the religious group sued. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, well, you let everybody else do this. You didn't have a real policy about what your standards were, so you got to allow this one. Which is why we're being advised that it is important to have a policy, which we don't have, so that we can be sure that the flags that are being flown are what the town wants as an expression of government speech.
Yeah, I agree that we definitely need a policy for Chris and staff to be able to sort of point to and apply consistently and fairly across the board. I guess the piece that has me concerned with the policy as written is, let me just jump over to it again real quick, is sort of the ending here where it says, no other flags shall be allowed to be flown on town-owned flagpoles, as this is a policy not intended to establish or serve to create a forum for private expression. I'm concerned that we're setting a precedent with that and sort of like closing the door behind that particular flag. So I guess that is where I have some reservations as the policy is written. Obviously, I signed the support statement a couple of years ago with my colleagues. So this is not an issue of, support or opposition to, the flag itself. What it is I'm looking at this as we're making a statement that this one and this one alone is the only one that would be allowed to be flown. And I that's inconsistent with me.
I hear that, Rob, and it's important to get this right. I guess I'm viewing this differently in that this is the interim step we're taking now as of June of 2023. We had this very recent request. I think we can all agree that we support our LGBTQ community in Westwood. We all, I think, agree on that. And so this is designed to try to meet the requests coming through the Human Rights Task Force for June 2023 only, and then give us an opportunity to figure out what is that process going to be going forward. Do we want to use the outrigger perhaps to allow for expression of other government speech that we may endorse, but that we need to think through that thoughtfully and have a process behind this. So I hear what you're saying. I guess I'm thinking of it as this is just a beginning to start this. We do need to protect ourselves and have a policy. This policy is really only, as of July 1st, only codifying what we already have in place and saying that's it until we come up with a permanent policy. So I hear what you're saying, Rob. I think it's because we are contemplating a permanent policy, we're not closing the door. We're just opening the door for June of 2023 for a different kind of expression of a flag on the town hall facade.
I guess I would be concerned with that as a precedent, though. What happens if we have another request that comes in, in June or July or whatever, that is between now and when we make an interim policy, a permanent policy decision? I guess that's, I have just a fundamental question as to whether we're being fair with this. And to me, I think the American flag covers all of us with that. So I'm struggling with that last part of the policy where it is, the pride flag in June and no other flag is the part that I'm really struggling with the way the policy is written currently.
Mm-hmm.
Marianne, I share some of Rob's concerns. I'm happy you emphasized that this is an interim policy and not a permanent policy. So I think it's a great start. You're absolutely right. We had to do something. It's good to have something in place that we can tune up. I did have a discussion with town council this morning, and I'm not sure if he had an opportunity to look into some of the concerns that I had, but I think we have some other resources out there that will help us devise the permanent policy.
Mm-hmm.
If I may, Madam Chairman,
Please.
I think these policies are from cities and towns are somewhat in their infancy, as is ours. And I think it's a step forward, and that over the next 8 to 12 months, we'll refine it even further and hopefully find a way to deal with your concerns, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, Rob, I think your concerns are very well taken, and in coming
And noted
forward,
from my perspective.
yeah, that this is a beginning, and what we need to do is we need to tackle the issue that you're talking about and come up with a process. And with this very recent request, and given how much goes into this, I think we need to be really thoughtful and get input from the community before we put forth a comprehensive policy. So I think it's this and making clear that this is an interim policy only, which again, as of July 1, 2023, just simply codifies that we're doing what we've been doing, and that's it until we come up with a permanent policy.
And Marianne, I think it's important that we acknowledge we did receive correspondence from people in the town, and we appreciate that feedback. We need that feedback from the people and want to let them know that we did get that, and thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Well, is
yes.
Is anyone willing to make a motion?
I will do so enthusiastically.
Joe, hang on one second. I'm gonna choose to abstain from this because I think it's premature for me to weigh in. I personally think that I very much stand by the statement that we made 2 years ago and the valuable contribution and the strength of the diversity of our community. So I feel very, very strongly that I am supportive of that. It is this particular policy and sort of the inconsistency of it is why I'm going to abstain.
Well, there goes my enthusiastic motion to accept the flag policy. I make a motion we do adopt the interim flag policy.
And I will second that out of necessity. Roll call vote. Joe,
Aye.
Rob, abstain, and I vote aye. So that motion does carry.
And, excuse me, Madam Chair, just
Yes.
to clarify, this is a policy that would go into effect. I thought I heard you say July. Do you mean it's going to go into effect?
No,
after this vote?
Oh, I'm sorry if I misspoke. What I was trying to indicate is that as of July 1, after June of 2023 is
Okay.
over, really what we're left with is codifying what we have already.
Thank you for the
This would
clarification. Okay.
go into effect now. And I appreciate the very thoughtful discussion on that. So thank you all. All right, moving on to our next agenda item, the release of capital for the first quarter. And with us, we have our Finance Director, Stephanie McManus. Good evening. Thank
Good
you.
evening, thank you. Yep, so at the May 1st town meeting, there was approved capital budget articles for municipal, school, sewer, ambulance, and then additional capital improvement projects that totaled $5,177,500. Within those articles, there is language stipulating that each piece of equipment, a project, before there can be expenditures of funds, there must be a majority vote of the select board. So tonight we are asking, and that is done 4 times throughout the fiscal year by quarter. And tonight we are requesting release of the first quarter capital totaling $3,541,250,000. And there's a list of projects included in the packet, and the majority of those funds are requested to release in the first quarter, just due to the projects that are done over the summer for the school, as well as larger DPW projects that need to have funding in place when they get started.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any questions or comments?
No questions from me.
I will entertain a motion.
I move the select board approves the release of first quarter fiscal year 24 capital totaling $3,541,250 to the various departments contingent upon all procurement procedures and checklists being fulfilled.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, roll call. Joe,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you very much, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have appointments and reappointments of boards and committees. So we are starting our annual process for appointments and reappointments. The Select Board's office sent out notices to individuals who are up for reappointment on June 30, 2023, asking for their interest in continuing to serve. The appointment process will continue over the next few Select Board meetings as more responses are received. We do have a number of vacancies that I want to emphasize, which are posted on the town website, which are with the Dedham-Westwood Water District Board of Commissioners, the Historical Commission, the Housing Partnership Fair Housing Committee, Recreation Commission, and the Westwood Environmental Action Committee. Board and committee vacancies will be updated on a weekly basis on the town website or as needed, and we encourage you to apply if you are interested. With that, we have a list, and Rob, I'm told you're going to need to read this list. I just want to highlight most of these folks, and we want to read the list because, first of all, we really need to acknowledge everyone who steps up to volunteer, and we're so grateful for everybody who does that. Let me highlight just a few of the new appointments, if I may. So with the Westwood Cultural Council, we have 2 candidates, Anna Cohen, who is a director and educator in the arts sector and a new resident to town. Welcome. She would like to bring her broad range of cultural and creative initiatives to the council to support and expand on what already exists and to work on what is missing. And then we also have Jessica Hancock, who has worked with the Martha Jones Elementary School to apply for grants and sees the interesting opportunities these grants provide for the students, and she'd like to continue the good work of the council. And by my reading of our list here, as far as other new appointments, that as opposed to reappointments, we have Josh Ames, a current planning board member, who would be a new liaison to the Westwood Environmental Action Committee. And we also have several new student members to the Youth and Family Services Board. And those folks are Andrew Alex, Isaac Chan, Megan Greeley, and Ella Zhu. And I believe all of the other folks that we have before us are reappointments. Any discussion or questions from my colleagues on this list?
No, I think what I'll do, Marianne, if you would like, I will make a motion to vote to reappoint or appoint individuals to the various board and committees as follows. Reappointing Chris Coleman as the American with Disabilities Act Coordinator. Reappointing Shelley Reber to the Board of Health. Reappointing our Charter Review Committee, Peter Cahill, Paul Fitzgerald, Nancy Hyde, John Locknane, and then serving as ex officio members, Dottie Powers, Pat Ahern, and Chris Coleman. The Chief Procurement Officer is being
Excuse me,
reappointed.
Rob?
Yeah,
Just to correct it, so Dottie is actually a voting member of the Charter Review Committee now?
thank you. Yeah, I misspoke there. Thank you, Chris. Chris Coleman as the Chief Procurement Officer reappointment, as well as the Compensation Agent reappointment. The election officers, and there are many, and thank you to all. Cheryl Bearden, Elaine Arp, Michelle Berluti, Joan Broderick, Mitchell Burrick, Brian Kamiker, Roger Christian, John Clardy, Thomas Daly, Claudia Duff, Britta Fredrickson, Marie Keeler, Teresa Laham, Lynn Lawless, Barbara Laws, Carol Lefebvre, Nancy Looney, Joseph Margolin, Dorlis Marmol, Kathleen McDonough, Karen McGilly, Patrice McGinnis, Ann Neville, Doug Obie, Joan O'Brien, Terry O'Neill, Marianne O'Sullivan, Benitha Palikaritha, excuse me if I didn't get that entirely correctly, Karen Pareda, Susan Scales, William Sabet, Steve Springer, Julia Thistlethwaite, Sarah Thomas, Gentania Topali, Jane Wigan, Wendy Wilhelm, and Jennifer Zonderman. Chris Coleman is reappointed to, or would be reappointed to the Fair Housing Director. The Fair Housing Partnership and Housing Committee would have a reappointment of Chris Paff. The Long Range Financial Planning Committee, and Kate Wynn, also on the Fair Housing Partnership. The Long Range Financial Planning Committee, Nancy James, Skip Wells, Julianne Bride, Melissa McDonough, Maya Plotkin from the School Committee, Phil Shapiro, the Town Treasurer, Nancy Hyde from the Board of Assessors, a new appointment to Paul Tusseri as Tax Collector, and the following as ex officio members. Chris Coleman, Molly Keene, Patrick Ahern, Nora Locknane, Todd Corchin, Stephanie McManus, Jamie McCarthy, and Lemma Jean-Baptiste. Our MAPC representative would be a reappointment of Phil Giordano from the Planning Board to the MAPC. The MBTA Advisory Board would we would reappoint Steve Olenoff to serve on that role. We have Municipal Hearing Officer Christopher Coleman as a reappointment. The MWRA Advisory Board, Robert Rafferty and Todd Corchin as reappointments. The Parking Clerk, reappointing Christopher Coleman. The Regional Transportation Advisory Council, reappointing Phil Giordano. The Registrar of Voters, Marjorie Aramo. The Three River Interlocal Council Board, Ellen Rawlings would serve as a new member there, and Chris Paff would be reappointed. The Town Perambulator, Steve Springer, would be reappointed. The Westwood Cultural Council would have Maria Ryan reappointed with the aforementioned Anna Cohen and Jessica Hancock as new members. The Westwood Environmental Action Committee would have Josh Ames serving as the ex officio from the planning board. The Youth and Family Services would have Mary Ellen LaRose and Katie Colhart as ex officio members, with the following student members: Andrew Alex, Isaac Chan, Megan Greeley, and Elliot Zhu. And finally, the zoning board would have reappointments for Keith Flanders and Mark Callahan. Could use a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Roll call, Joe.
Can we have some discussion, Marianne? I have a concern about other board committee discussion. How do we get the opportunity to discuss that?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question, Joe.
I'm looking at the minutes. It says other board and committee discussion, pedestrian bicycle safety advisory committee. I'm happy to second Rob's motion, but I think additional discussion is needed on another committee that was not on this list.
I intended to address that after this vote.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay, so I think we had a second.
You have a motion and a second, Madam Chairman.
Thank you so much. Roll call, Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Nice job on the motion, Rob. You earned yourself a glass of water after that. Okay, so moving on, Joe, as you pointed out, we do have the issue of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Advisory Committee, which we do need to discuss. My recommendation was going to be that we defer that discussion until our next meeting, so that we can really fully dive into that at that time. However, if you'd like to talk about it now, and maybe we can generate some discussion, and my recommendation would be that we perhaps vote on that at our next meeting.
Yes, thanks, Marianne. I will discuss it now.
Sure.
Probably 6 months before I entertained the idea of running, I started attending different committee meetings in the town. I figured if I was going to be making appointments, I don't know who the people are and how those committees were functioning. I attended WEAC, Concom meetings, the rec committee meetings, pedestrian sidewalk committee meetings, in addition to planning board and select board meetings. I wanted to know 3 things. Are they doing what they're intended to do? Were they welcoming to the public? And do they need additional resources from the select board? I found the Pedestrian Bike Safety Committee extremely helpful. For those of you that don't know, it puts the Westwood Police Department Traffic Safety Officer at the same table as Todd Corchin. We all know that Todd does a great job with some of the pedestrian safety issues in town, but he can't do it without the approval from the police department. In case you don't know, Massachusetts just approved a new law regarding bicycle safety, that there has to be a 4-foot separation between motor vehicles and cars, and you'll see the signs going up soon. Given the fact we've got the Downey Street sidewalk in the works, and the possibility of an $18 million sidewalk project on Canton Street, I think this committee is invaluable. I found them to be very responsive. I think they bring some real resources to the table. I think at this point, I think we ought to reappoint these people, but I'm certainly happy to discuss that and be educated on what your thought process was in holding off on this. But I think it's a great committee.
Great. Rob, anything to add on that?
I'm happy to wait till the next meeting to discuss further.
Great. Great. Well, look forward to that as well. The other thing on boards and committees is that we do still need to replace Joe on long range. Wondering if you folks were able to make any progress on that in terms of a suggestion.
I have a couple of pending requests out to folks to see if they would be interested. So I don't have anybody to put forward this evening. I hope to have one by the next meeting.
Great.
I believe we also got notification from a second beyond Joe. Is that not right, Tish? There was another member who is not going to.
Mr. Jordan will not like to continue
Right.
after July 1st. So you'll actually have 2 appointments.
Okay,
Replacing Mr. Jordan as well.
so we should all then redouble our efforts and bring some names to our next meeting on June 21st, so that we can get those filled, because gonna be busy.
Madam Chair, if I may, I would suggest we get it to, if we have nominations, we get them to Tish and Chris in advance of the publishing of the agenda so that we can actually put the names on and approve them at our next meeting if we are so inclined.
Excellent suggestion.
Thanks,
Great.
Rob.
Okay. So moving on to old business, we have a request to approve the fiscal year 2024 notice for the acting and temporary town administrator. By way of background, this is the annual review of the acting and temporary town administrator document that allows the town administrator to give notice to the select board and the town clerk, according to our town charter, whereby any period of time in the upcoming fiscal year, the town administrator may officially name someone as temporary town administrator. So this is the same document that the board has seen for a number of years, which we need to approve. Any questions or comments from my colleagues?
None from me.
None.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move the select board approve the notice for acting and temporary town administrator, which allows the town administrator, Christopher Coleman, to appoint the assistant town administrator, finance director, assistant town administrator, human resources director, or town council as temporary town administrator for any period during the fiscal year 2024, and to give notice to the town clerk and the select board.
I'll second the motion.
All right, roll call. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Excellent. Moving on our agenda, we have the approval of our regular meeting minutes from May 22, 2023. Are there any additions or edits to those minutes?
I had none.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes for May 22nd, 2023 as written.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call. Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Wonderful. Moving on, public and press. I can see we've got a couple of comments. Mandy Taft Perlman, would you please add your address? We like to have an address before we read a comment, please. We have a comment from Fran Fusco, 20 Pine Lane. Will the town administrator or fire chief receive the operational study before the select board? I'm concerned that if they do, it will delay the delivery to the residents. Well, I presume that the town administrator will get it because he will send it to us. And I'm assured that the day that we get it, that it will be going on the website. Can you confirm that, Chris?
100%, Madam Chair.
Okay. That would be the point of contact. It would have to go through the town administrator's office to get to the select board. And then we have a comment from Kathy Wallace, 283 Farm Lane. I am concerned that the Westwood Fire Department operational study is needed to inform the safety aspect of the collective bargaining process regarding minimum staffing levels. Why has Criterion Associates not been able to deliver a study that sounded like it was almost done in March? It was stated that the consultant has personal issues. Is this a one-person operation? I'm gonna defer, if I may, Chris, to you on this, with respect to Criterion Associates, if you could help to elucidate us on that.
There's a primary person who's been working on the operational study, and that person has also been working with our design team on the feasibility study. So the person has been working, so we do have a primary person. I can't speak to how many employees are with that organization or that company, but we do have a primary person that the town has been working with regarding the operational study. And as you said, Madam Chair, I expect to have this, I'm hoping to have this by your next meeting.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
my recollection is that when that consultant was before us back in March, I believe that the feasibility study for siting, site options for this Firehouse 1, was what was going to be ready soon. I think we always said that the operational study was going to be at the end of May. And so that is where this delay has occurred. It's just we are a few days beyond the end of May. So I believe that's where some of the confusion over that March timeframe may exist.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is another comment, but unfortunately we don't have an address for the person who wrote the other comment. So I guess I'm not supposed to read that, right, Pat? Or
It's a very good idea to be consistent.
okay, then I will do so. Mandy Taft Perlman, if you're still on and can add your address, we'll try to get that in. Although we're right at the end of our agenda, our next meeting is June 21st, 2023 at 6 p.m. via Zoom. I'm just going to check the chat one more time. That's it. So with that, the select board will be going into executive session to discuss 3 issues. The first is pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 28A1, to discuss the discipline or dismissal of or complaints or charges brought against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. The second, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to general collective bargaining for union personnel, specifically the SEIU Union and Westwood Permanent Firefighters Association Local 1994 IAFF. And the third, pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A6, to discuss strategy with respect to the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, Hale Education, Inc., and a joint meeting with the town of Dover, all of which would have a detrimental effect on the position of the governing body. If the discussion were in open session, the board will not be returning to open session. And with that, I will entertain.
I'll make the motion in a moment, Mary Ann. Town council, do I need to state that I will not be participating in that final piece of the executive session per the aforementioned recusal?
So yes, it would be a good idea. It actually would be a good idea for Joe to do the second, and you should recuse yourself from, although you can participate, you can vote to go into executive session, you announce that you're gonna recuse yourself from the third item.
Very good. So I move that we go into executive session for the 3 aforementioned reasons. The third of which, with respect to the Hale conversation and joint meeting with the town of Dover, I will be recusing myself of per the previous comments that I have made with respect to this issue.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, Joe?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote aye as well.
Madam Chairman, there is one other comment in the chat.
Okay, thank you. This is another one from Fran Fusco, 20 Pine Lane. We were told the study would be ready early June. Why are we waiting till next meeting? Well, Fran, we don't have it now, and we want to discuss it when we do have it and our next meeting is June 21. So that's the only, that's the next opportunity, the first opportunity we would have to review it after, presumably we will be getting it soon. So that's why we're waiting until the next meeting, because we simply don't have it today. Okay, so with that, good evening, everyone. Thank you. And we will not be returning to open session. Good night.
Good night.